All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here this morning, and it is my pleasure to introduce Kathie Court, our spotlight speaker today. And she's going to share with us about 10,000 villages.
Yes.
And about herself. And I'm going to get out of your way and hand it over to you.
Okay. My name is Kathie Court, and I'm here today to, well, let me get to my next slide. I've had the opportunity to teach social responsibility and business ethics at both the undergraduate and the graduate level. And so you all have been exposed to teaching. If you really want to learn something, teach it to someone else. And then you really know it. The pictures that you will see today were supplied by the executive director of 10,000 Villages, Lincoln. I'm trying to plant seeds, but let's see if I've got this down. But my agenda is not hidden. I'm going to be right up front about it. I'm trying to plant a seed to get each of you to consider being involved in the board of a nonprofit organization, one that you connect with their mission and their vision. And I'm also here to just introduce 10,000 Villages. I'm hoping I can get the executive director to come back and really do a nice in-depth explanation of what our store does and how we impact the people that we do. And then when you leave here today, you'll be taking in your hand information about 10,000 Villages and about the board that we have there. So take a moment and think to yourself, how do you feel when you hear the term corporate social responsibility? And I'll just give you a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to ask you to share. And you're such a shy retiring group that I imagine I'm going to have to push you to do so. But who has a thought about corporate social responsibility? Well,
Tom's shoes.
Yes.
Yes, that's a good one. One that was just another organization that was just in the news today is Patagonia. Patagonia was, 1 week's worth of study for my students because the founder felt so strongly about the environment that he changed the way he did his rock climbing. He did all manner of things. He released his employees so that they could work for a nonprofit organization and still be paid their salaries. The only turnover they had was when one of his employees got so connected to a nonprofit organization that they chose to leave Patagonia and go work for that nonprofit organization. So that gives you some clue. Another organization that I talked about a lot in my classrooms was that of Ben & Jerry's. Ben Cohen had some very strong feelings about how business should be, even when they were starting out in their little filling station and selling ice cream by the cone. He asked 3 really important questions that really guided what they did. And one was, what would the world look like if businesses got serious about pursuing social and environmental justice? And the one that I thought I wanted to display for you as you think about your businesses is, what if a business was directed towards several equally important goals, with profit being one of them? And that's known in the social entrepreneurial world as the triple bottom line. And then finally, what would happen if social justice activists controlled the board of directors of a large global enterprise, and could that work? So if you're curious about Ben & Jerry's and the journey that they took, and it was a rocky one, there's a book written by, let me get his name right, Edmonston in 2014. It's called Ice Cream Social. I'm sure you can get it through the library. It's a fascinating book about their journey and, you know, how they got to where they got to. So you might say, okay, that's all well and good for these companies that may have money to do these wonderfully social responsible things. But you may not have money, but you have time. And even if you believe that time is money, there are benefits for you and those in your organization to be involved with your community. Each one of the people in this picture were associated with 10,000 Villages Lincoln. Each one of the people in this picture represent a network outside of your own network. So folks who do things like sell product understand the importance of reaching outside your own network to expand your business. If you stay within, that's why many people struggle, isn't it? They stay within their own network, they do great, and then they don't do great because everybody that they know who they could sell to has been sold to. So expanding your network is important. So the other benefits for you are, and given the experience I see in this room, this may not be as meaningful, but younger folks getting started, leadership development is one. Personal and professional growth, practice in strategic thinking, and then also just experience being part of a board. So that when you are on the other side, you're an executive director or you're running your own business with a board, you will know how to work with that board. So, you know, quickly I'm getting to my ask. And I'm going to sit down for this because my ask is that you consider serving on the board of directors for 10,000 Villages. And we've had people ask us, but you're a store, how can you be nonprofit? Well, this is how. We're social entrepreneurs. And you may wonder, what is the difference? A social entrepreneur versus an economic entrepreneur. A social entrepreneur uses the profits of their business solely for the good of others. They exist to fulfill their mission. Versus an economic entrepreneur that starts a business and accepts most of the risk, you know, along with the bank or whoever loans you money, associated with owning that business. So what 10,000 Villages does in general is the work of social entrepreneurs. We support the economic entrepreneurs throughout the globe and the United States to sell their products so they can continue to grow their businesses. Okay, so let me take this time to hand out to you some information about 10,000 Villages. There we go. And just to let you know that we are a small but mighty board. And we're looking for folks who have had experience in various things like law and finance, but also people who can, there you go, thank you. People who have an interest in helping other businesses grow. So we are a 501c nonprofit. We are the only fair trade store in Nebraska, and our goal is to take products from the maker to the market. And so far, we've partnered with dozens of artisan groups, and that they represent 20,000 artisans across the globe and the United States. So one question that I might be able to ask is, anyone familiar with fair trade? What fair trade is about? It's okay. What's your understanding of fair trade?
Fair trade is that they're working for a living wage, that they're not getting paid pennies. So fair trade is often used in coffee and whatnot. They'll be branded that it's a fair trade company.
Yeah, and every product that we sell is a certified fair trade. Now, the coffee is good, but for me, it's the chocolate. I volunteer I volunteer because it's a good cause. My dissertation was about women entrepreneurs in the United States and how they contribute to the economic well-being of their communities. But for me, it's about the points I accumulate when I buy stuff and gives me free chocolate, yes. And it's extremely delicious. So yeah, the tenets of fair trade are just aligned with good business. You establish long-term relationships. You help the folks create fair pricing. When goods are ordered from wherever they're ordered, half of the money is given to them so they can buy materials, and as soon as that product goes onto the ship, they get the rest of their payment. So, and it's negotiated so that it's a fair living wage. Now, a fair living wage in Uganda or another place is very different. And in my studies of women entrepreneurs in Baltimore, I learned that, you know, the $50 that would create businesses in Kenya wouldn't buy the postage stamps for women starting a business in Baltimore. It's just a very different environment. Also, the sense of community in the developing countries was such that once a unit of women got together and started to share, you know, this one gets the $50 until she makes her $50, puts it back in the pot, and then this one gets the $50. That sense of community does not exist in the United States in the same way. Now, there may be pockets of it, but it didn't exist in Baltimore, which was really too bad. Now, because I'm a recovering academic, I have to always share my references for everything that the quotes that I gave you or the definitions I gave you. And so the Ice Cream Social is the one, The Struggle for the Soul of Ben and Jerry's, that might be interesting. The other two are, you know, academic and full of good information, but at the same time. So I am Dr. Kathie Court. Jill Christie, I'm going to try to encourage to come and talk to you because she has actually gone to visit many of the artisans. She has lived with them. She has seen the results of when we sell their product here, when we educate folks here about what their lives are like and how they produce it, the things that they produce. She's really speaking from firsthand knowledge, where I'm speaking from reading and seeing the product and knowing that there are people out there benefiting because we exist. So do you guys have any questions?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you connect with the artisans that you're going to feature in your store?
We are a what's called a board store. 10,000 Villages has stores all over the country, and many of them are directly responsible to the national headquarters, which is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And the background and why it is a woman, Ruth, traveled to, I think it was Puerto Rico. She found these wonderful things, but the folks who made them had nowhere to sell them. So she bought them all, and she sold them out of her trunk of her car as she drove around. And then it just got bigger and bigger. So our connection for most of our vendors comes through the national corporate office. But the executive director has the choice of what she will buy and what she will bring in the store. And as much as possible, we stay aligned with the national store, but we also sell some things that don't come from our association with the national store. There's an organization called Serve that makes many nice products. Now, I went out of my way today to make sure I was wearing, products. The jewelry section, for those of you who wear all manner of jewelry, is a dangerous place to be. But beautiful stuff and good stories. My favorite story is the Starfish Project. Are you familiar with the concept of the starfish? Okay, there's a little boy on the beach, and he's throwing starfish back into the ocean. And somebody comes up to him and says, "You can't save them all." Yeah, but I saved that one, and I saved that one. So there's an organization in Southeast Asia. Their exact location is not shared. They rescue women from human trafficking situations and teach them. They do make some of the jewelry, like this is starfish. This is the starfish earrings. They make some of the jewelry, and they also learn skills that will help them have a good life. And they stay, I don't want to say hidden, but they are, so that no one comes back and tries to take them back to that life, because they're very valuable in that sense. So those are the kinds of stories that warm my heart. It's not like where when you buy this necklace, there's an organization in Cambodia that goes out and pulls all the shells from all the bombing, and they're brass, so they turn them into jewelry, and they're really beautiful. So I would ask you, even if my ask is way too much for where you are right now in terms of your own time, I would ask you to at least go down to the store once, walk around and just see all the amazing things that we have. One of our popular ones is Ellie Pool. Elephants eat plants, but they also are big. So their poop, if you ever watch South Park, is not small. It's a lot, and it was getting to be a problem for the villagers. But the villagers got smart, and they collected it, they sanitized it, they took the fibers, and they make paper with it. And there's a coloring book called Ellie Pool Coloring Book. There are journals that we have to sell. Now, it might gross you out a little, but to know that they are reclaiming and recycling what they can to create a product. So that was really a long answer to, how do you get that stuff? So any other questions that I might answer? Yes, sir.
Question, comment. A week ago Sunday, 60 Minutes, there was a piece about a young man who created an architectural firm. Uganda threw after all the genocide. Mm-hmm. They were trying to restore that. And I think this ties directly back to this. They literally used all local materials, and he helped identify. They built buildings, they built hospitals, all of that. And I probably won't have the term right, but it's natural environmental architecture. And that firm over the last 7 years has grown from a guy that hadn't even studied architecture, that finally got his degree, till this past year, the AIA, American Institute of Architects, awarded them the Outstanding Firm of the Year. But if you haven't seen that, I suggest you go back and YouTube it and find it, because that happens to be my background. But the crazy thing was, everything they could find, they would form their own bricks, they'd form their own stones, they'd find all the local materials and build it at 1/1000th of the cost that we would try to build something here. And this thing is expanding all over the world. I mean, open air hospitals. They're also doing environmentally, even in the United States, you go down, you find a warehouse, a bunch of buildings. All the windows that used to be great, because in the 40s before, 30s and 40s before, and 20s, you open the windows and let the air flow through. And so their whole theme is to go away from that, but involve and engage all the peoples in those communities. It not only gives them work, it gives them pride.
Yes.
And I've been to 10,000 a couple of times. And Sarah shared, now my question out of all that lecture is, how do you engage these people as well, not only to take their products and bring them, do you go and do anything to give back to help them, like the Southeast Asia experience? Do they do anything to educate them and help them grow as communities?
Yes. Actually, that's the part I sort of went over. Part of being in fair trade is that the organization, and I didn't bring those notes with me, the organization goes to I'm trying to think of, the Fair Trade Organization, which is a conglomeration of like 60 organizations that create this. They go to visit folks that have the Fair Trade designation, to not just to evaluate and say if they still have it, but to help them design their products better or market their products better. So there is support. It isn't just, you know, you're blessed and you are this thing. It's a continuous improvement kind of relationship. So our store executive director has been to visit and see those, but there's also formal ways that the Fair Trade Organization helps and sanctions and stays in a relationship with those organizations. Did that address your question? Any other questions?
Comment more than a question.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into my background, but I've lived and worked in more than 15 countries around the world, including Africa, Far East, Middle East. And I've seen exactly what you're talking about. And what I found very often was that the local people did not want charity. They would far rather work with me as a bank manager, providing I was fair and open with terms and conditions, as it were, and help them to economically grow a business, than take $1,000, whatever, and say, look, go and get your business running with this $1,000. Do you find that is that really what the fair trade is about? Because people the other end, if you like, at the other end of the boat, right, the other end of the traveling on an airplane to Kenya or South America or wherever, they don't want charity per se, but they do almost insist on help us out economically so that we can be standing.
Yeah.
Do you find that
my experience is limited in that area, but the feedback I get, the stories I've read, because if you go to the 10,000 Villages website, almost any product that you buy, you can read the story of the people that create it. They don't want charity. They don't want anything free. They want to be able to build a life that they feel good about living, that they can raise their children, that send their children to school. So you've probably experienced far more than I have in that area. But what I'm understanding is they want feedback on their products so that they can make sure they're good products. We don't sell junk. We sell pretty high quality products. And if something is broken, it goes back to the maker so that they're aware of what their issues are and what they can do. So yes, thank you for your comment. Having lived around the world, you would have more firsthand experience of what that's like than I. Any other questions or comments?
This is more about the business structure. So who works in the store? Are there employees?
Thank you.
Board members?
The board, being part of the board, We ask that you volunteer in the store periodically. We have store events, you know, International Women's Day, Elephant Appreciation Day, all kinds of very cool, fun stuff. We have paid staff. We have a executive director / store manager, an assistant manager, and then a sales associate. And we struggled mightily during the pandemic, as many people did, but we were one of the few stores in the 10,000 Villages range of stores that stayed open, that did not close. And it took a lot on our executive director's part to make sure that we stayed open and that we used everything in our power, social media, sales on Facebook, things like that. And then we have an association with the UNL where students have an assignment to contribute. It's like civic engagement. And so for a semester, those students volunteer at our store as sales associates. I would really encourage, if you have an organization like that where you want to, or maybe you are not in a position to serve on the board, but you could volunteer a couple times a month for a 2-hour shift, then that would mean you would just come in the store and show, help people find. Basically, we are a gift store, and our big time of year starts October 1st and is over around January 1st, that's where we would make most of the money. Although recently people have been Christmas shopping. Now it's like, yeah, come on in, it's okay. We will help you. So there's volunteers, and we try very hard to make sure there's at least one volunteer per shift, and then per 2-hour shift, and then we have paid staff. So the volunteers are not put in a position where they have to make any decisions other than help customers find what they're trying to find. And I even use the cash register. It's kind of a comedy routine, but I volunteer myself. So, any other? Did I answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How many stores are there in Nebraska?
One. Yeah. I think Omaha at one point had one, but they don't anymore. We have people who come up from Kansas City where there is a store, and I visited stores in Hagerstown, Maryland, on my way back to the East Coast and things like that. It's kind of fun to see how other stores are different. I must say, of the stores I've been exposed to, our store is kind of special because the light that we get from the windows, the foot traffic we get from just people hanging out in the Haymarket, it's really beneficial. It's nice. Yes, sir.
Different question. What brought you to Nebraska?
What brought me to Nebraska is my husband's job. And my husband is the Assistant Director of Urban Development. His area of expertise is parking. I don't usually let people know that, so that when I'm in a group, they start going, and then the parking, and I'm going, okay, let me hear it. It's nothing he hasn't heard before, but I'll give him I never tell him, but I give him the feedback. But he was brought in specifically because he had experience with building garages, and at the time they built the Pinnacle Bank Arena, they knew they were going to build plenty of garages. And not to toot his horn, but he just received the Lifetime Achievement Award from his own professional association. So yeah, so that's what brought me here. But what keeps me here, because we had said we would probably retire to Lawrence, Kansas, where we spent about 6 years. No, we like Lincoln a lot. It's a beautiful city. It's good people. Yeah, we're staying. You can't chase us out. So. Any other questions? Yes?
This isn't about 10,000 villages.
That's
but,
okay.
Do Do you want to share anything about the project you're currently working on in the Sweet Spot?
The
Your book there.
oh okay. Years ago, I worked in Lawrence, Kansas. I used to drive by a cemetery, and there was a young woman standing in the cemetery, and I thought it was very sad. Every morning I drove by, and she was still there, and I went, no, this can't be a woman standing over a grave. I went into the cemetery. It was the headstone for a 12-year-old who died in 1916. This child has haunted me for 16 years, and now I am writing a book about her and her family. So the reason these people even know me is every Tuesday morning I take 2 hours in one of the little open offices and do what, if you write sprints, I read through the book and go, oh, there's a big fat hole. I need to fill that with something. And I'll sit and I'll write for 2 hours until, my brain is numb, and then I'll leave. So I need to thank you for being here. And hopefully I've given myself a year. Either finish it or just stop talking about it. So, yeah, that's my project. Anything else about 10,000 Villages, about where to sign up for the board?
Where do you sign up for the board?
You call me, or you...
It's on the sheet.
It's on the sheet. You think I'd miss the opportunity? Let's see. You can either email me or email Jill. Either one will get you in the right place. And if you do want to volunteer, just, for a couple hours shifts a month, Jill is the person to talk to, because she sets up that training and gets people going. And we have an online schedule, and you pick your time and do what you do.
What are the store hours?
Okay, that's going to be harder because we had to cut back, and now they're open. But they're open from 10. Yeah, thank you very much for asking me a question I don't have. We used to have to be closed on Sunday and Monday, but now we're open from noon to 4 on Sunday and from 10 to 6 on Monday. 10 to 6 on most days, but Fridays, especially now during football season when there's a lot more people around, and we're a gift store and we're getting ready for Christmas, we're open several nights until 8 o'clock, like Friday, Saturday nights. So. Okay, any other questions?
This is comment question.
Okay.
I've had the experience to work with a gentleman from India whose American name is Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to do with bringing ministries into the 3,000 plus religions that are in India now. And what they're doing is, and they're getting sponsorships from people here in the United States, and he happens to work with a dentist friend of mine. And what they do is they help these people develop skill sets first in the back countries and all over before they even try to do ministries, and to build a career, if you will, or a business. And so my question, and from that, they then create a revenue stream and an income, and from that revenue stream and income, that allows them to build and expand their ministry. So when you talk to the villages and you got the people, and I kind of touched on this before, what leadership skill sets are being, if you will,
Taught.
no matter what level, are being brought to these people? Yes, they're making products, but to help them improve, to be more efficient, to create a community of leadership. What is the role of 10,000 Villages in helping that?
I learned early on in my teaching career, if you don't know the answer, you need to tell them you don't know the answer. And I don't know the answer to that, but I'm pretty sure Jillian, the executive director, would know the answer to that. So I think you've just given me an opportunity to tell her, yeah, you need to sign up and go explain to these folks what is actually happening. My goal is to recruit. And her goal probably more is to educate about 10,000 villages. More so, because when we were working on this together, she said, oh, you need this slide and this slide. And I went, I have 10 minutes. I have 10 minutes. This is my message. This is my goal. But you need to, I have 10 minutes. So I think in 10 to 15 minutes, she would find a way to answer your question and many more.
Because I believe that has to be an integral part.
I believe it is.
Successes.
I believe it is, and I think the role, and this is where I'm speculating, the role of 10,000 Villages is as a member of this fair trade organization, and how they are part of the group that does show up and contribute. So, okay. Any other questions? And if you didn't get a handout, please let me know if you came in a little bit late. I'll get those to you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the donuts. Dunkin' Donuts.
Thank you, Kathie.
You're
so much
welcome.
for being here. And
Thanks.
I want to read this book, so I think you should finish it.
Oh, yeah. I will. I promise.
And everybody stay around. There's more donuts, there's more coffee, and please come back next week. We will have Scott with SourceLink Nebraska to share with us that resource. So, thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks for coming.